what you know. Beliefs and principles, and say it with your chest. Melanin popping, and we gonna see conversation, reality. What you want, we got what you need. A dose of the truth, a brick of the street. Gotta touch grass when you on this scene. Sometimes seem too gray to me. Either it is or it ain't. Gotta keep it tall. Small thoughts, R.I.P. Flawed in all. Righteous call. Rofos tall. BS fall. Pull your stack. Break your guard. Stereotypes can't play this long. Throw your scripts against this wall. Talking points to your flaw. Legs too limb. Take this wall. Gotta keep it trill. Gotta keep it raw like yes. Or punch it to the dead. Talk about the globe. Standing 10 toes with your theory to the test. We be the SBS. Or punch it to the dead. Show me what you know. Beliefs and principles. And say it with your chest. Too extreme to ever be. We bring balance to how you think. Do it make sense? Will it really work? Put it to the test. Tell me what you seen. What you heard, would it really be? Did you fail? Did it succeed? Hey, what you want? Here's what you need. Get out your brain and get on your feet. SPSPOD. RAW, we need you to tap that blue leaf. Chop it up, tap it in, and let's speak. Let's see. The trap of the nerd. The hot girl swerve. The wife, the husband, the bee. The single, the baddie, the righteous, the ratchet. All get a chance to speak. SBS. Or punch it to the dead. Talk about the globe. Standing 10 toes with your theory to the test. We be the SBS. Or punch it to the dead. Show me what you know. Beliefs and principles. And say it with your chest.
Check. Let's go. Yeah. Let's go. Check. Welcome to the SPS podcast. I'm your host and moderator, DJ Strada. You are now tuned in to the Raw Bunch. Make sure you hit the like button on your way in, man. We're going to get straight to it this evening. So, the show for this evening is more likely to be shot than married. The odds facing Black America. So this show is going to be a little different, but kind of in the same vein, right? So I'm going to tell y'all how we got here with me asking a question that way and what I want to do for the night. So I was watching a show on Netflix, right? I be popping in and out different shows. And the show was Southland, and Regina King, she plays a detective on the show. And so she was having a conversation about her love life. And so the context is this, right? Regina King on the show, she's a very prominent detective. Her love life is kind of like, right? But she's talking to another woman detective about her odds to get married. And I thought it was interesting. So before I get to the stats, see if I can bring this up. I want y'all to watch this clip real quick, and I'm going to get straight to the stats and how we plan to do the rest of the show. Let's see what we got here. Share the screen. Give me 1 second. Make sure y'all like, comment, and subscribe. We're going to play this clip, and I'm going to kind of get y'all thoughts on this.
Where are you going? It's the use of a traffic cam if all you get is a partial plate.
At least we got the make of the car right after nobody got shot. They'll narrow it down.
You know how many Cadillac Escalades that could be? Sletty still works on it.
Speed this up just a piece. Give me 1 second, y'all.
Yeah, guess he didn't take it well. You know, I read somewhere that as a Black woman over 30, have a better chance of getting shot than getting married.
I got shot when I was at Newton. Look, and I've been divorced twice. Trust me, Nana.
So if you didn't catch it, like I said, the context is simple, right? So in the clip, Regina's talking about at her age at 30, she's more likely to be shot than to get married. And so her partner was pretty much saying, well, she had been both. She had been divorced and she got shot. And she said both overrated. And that got me to thinking, right? I think when I'm on the internet and I'm just listening, what happens a lot is I'll hear statistics and I'll be like, damn, that's an interesting stat to talk about. Now I try to think about ways that we can tackle them, right? To get to some solutions. But what was interesting was that it was just jarring to hear, if I'm being honest. Like I never thought that or tried to correlate certain stats to each other. So that's what I did for the show, right? This show will be based on juxtaposing positive and negative statistics and seeing how we can get more to the positive side of things. But that was just super jarring, man. And I was like, yo, that's crazy that, you know, when they wrote it into the script, the thought was that a black woman at 30 would be more likely to getting shot than getting married. Like, that's just wild to hear. But I think it's even deeper than that. So I pulled a couple of stats. I'm going to bring those up on the screen here in a few. And I'm going to get straight to asking these questions based on these stats and some of these categories. So let's get to it. The first stat, we got negative outcomes versus positive outcomes. So when we're talking about violence versus marriage, 70 in every 100,000 is a current homicide rate for black men at the ages of 25 to 44. The positive outcome is about 68% of black men are incarcerated by 25, but by the age of 35, we still got 32 to 42% that are still unmarried. When we're talking about incarceration versus college, 12% of black men are incarcerated by the age of 25, and 17% of black men hold a bachelor's degree at the same age point. Single parent versus two parent household, you got 48% that are raised in single parent household and 37 to 42% that are raised in two parent household. And the question that we're going to get to ultimately is, why are negative outcomes statistically more predictable than positive ones? Now that's the question I've been struggling with, right? Why is it that the negative outcomes statistically seem to outpower the positive? And so my brain instantly goes into person versus system convo. Like, I've heard these things a lot, right? And I think that it's a culmination of both, right? But I think that the system is the system. And I think that, you can make strides to get out of it. But the most important piece to remember is, while you're in the system, that you are still responsible, no matter where you fall on the totem pole. Like, you can't really control it, right? There's not really a lot you can do outside of your environment to make it better or worse. And I think that that's where the true conversation is, can you succeed in spite of your environment? And that's a very important question, right? So the first thing I want to get to is the homicide stat, right? So these first couple of questions are kind of geared towards that. And again, I'm going to run through these questions just to kind of give you all my thoughts on it. So the first one is, if homicides is a leading cause of death, how does living in that reality affect long-term relationship planning? And again, like, when you're looking at both of those stats independently, they don't seem to correlate. But when you put them together, you start kind of seeing causation to results. And what I mean by that is, right, when you're looking at, okay, why aren't people getting together? But then you marry the concept of them not getting together with homicides being the leading cause of death, you'll kind of see that as a people, we have been conditioned to experience life so short-termed that what you'll notice is that it's hard to look and plan past what's in front of you, right? So those two stats kind of said to me is that we are in a world now to where people are literally staked against survival versus longevity. Relationships ain't no different. So if you're in a place, then, you're more prone to crime. We're talking about the mentality of men now, right? So if men are in an environment that's high likelihood for them not to make it past the age of 25 or 26, it doesn't shock me that the value of long-term relationships get lost. That actually makes sense, right? If your next moment is always geared upon whether you live or die, whether you live or die, it makes sense that something as long-term as a relationship or marriage kind of goes to the back of your brain. You can't even see yourself at the age of 40. Now imagine that same mentality has to not only see themselves at the age of 40, they have to see themselves at 40 with someone else. That's some wild shit. You know what I'm saying? And I could play clip after clip after clip of men in movies that, you know, kind of be like, you know, I'm blessed to be alive past 25. And I ain't gonna lie, I think from where I'm from and the people that I know what it's like to be in that mentality when you're younger, right? The way you're just trying to understand how the fuck are you going to get to the next age? What does that look like, right? And so a lot of times I think people pleasantly surprise themselves when you make it out of your negative environment. And I think that that's what we're seeing a lot of, which is why the idea of long-term relationships and even marriage is going to always fall short, because you can't see past what's in front of your face. How would I expect someone that can't do that to then have the wherewithal to know what it takes to maintain a relationship? It's kind of crazy, right? When you think about it that way, is that if you're faced with the odds of death, right? And I know it's extreme, but I need to make it extreme to juxtapose the two statistics. But I don't think anybody's ever looked at it that way. That when we're comparing homicide rates to relationship rates, do we not start to see why the two things don't always correlate, or how the mentality is what could be off of these scenarios? Now, this is only one facet, right? So I'm not even going to say that even with that question, that tells the whole story, because it doesn't, right? Not everyone's going to fall victim to these things, and I understand that to be true, but we're still juxtaposing how these two things can correlate if you never thought about it that way. So the next question I got that's in the same vein as violence in marriage is delayed marriage in a Black community more about personal choice or rational survival instincts in high-risk environments? What does that question mean? So take yourself out of your current scenario, and I want you to think. Black boy, Black girl grow up in an impoverished environment. All they see and all they know for the first 18 years of their life is struggle and deficit. They become old enough to where they make a choice. So at 18, little Black boy, little Black girl decides they're going to do military, possibly college, right? Maybe community, maybe major university. In 18 years, if all you've done is survived, how do we expect you in another 10 years to change and unlearn everything you thought you knew in the first 18? Is that even feasible? Right? And now this show is going to get a little funny, because it's going to sound like excuses, but what I am trying to do and what I will accomplish through the show is showing you how stats, when isolated, can say a thing. But when you start juxtaposing them next to other statistics, it frames both of them better. So it's not an excuse, more so than an understanding. And that's how I'm trying to tackle this thing. And so we're walking with the same Black boy and Black girl. After 18, things may get better, right? If they went to the military, they didn't have the support of the U.S. government after they do their service to, lean on something that's a little better. And I think that's cool, right? But I think that what also happens, what's up, bro? I think what also happens even in that vein is that now you have access to things that you didn't see and know to be true. How fast can you adjust? What I do know about a poverty mentality or a poor mind is that scarcity never leaves you. Anyone that's ever been in poverty or came from poverty, although you're doing better, you almost have to convince yourself that it's real, because your scarcity mindset still carries through and bleeds in the rest of your life. So if you grew up in a household where preservation of food was a thing, you might have a fridge full of food, but you're still going to have that dire need to store or to save it, even from yourself, right? And that's no different from money. So I think that a lot of the impulses we have, we talk about relationships in the Black community, a lot of this is based on how we were raised. Like if I ask most people to define your childhood, what you can recollect of me can tell me a lot about how you see your future. How you talk about it matters, right? So if I ask you about your childhood and all you can tell me about is how poor you were or the environment you grew up in, and even in that poverty, you have no positive memories, it wouldn't surprise me that you would delay something as final as marriage. Why? Because life has taught you up until the point in which you want to say I do, that nothing is forever and you've seen the worst of the worst. Now, this does two different things to two different types of people. For a person that allows life to happen to them, right? If they're attacking marriage and the concept of something happening to me, then their first thought is fear, even in the face of love. Because they remember what it's like to not have, that'll be how they enter the mentality of marriage. I got to have my nest egg put away. I got to put something on the back end just in case this shit don't work, because life has shown you for the first 18 years of living that shit ain't sweet. Is that an excuse? No. Is that the mentality you should have? Absolutely not. But we got to deal with what's real. The numbers are telling us that this is real. So this ain't even my opinion on it, right? And I think that that's where you separate the line between excuses and context. It's a fine line, but it is there, right? But I think that all these things are important when we're trying to challenge ourselves to be better, right? The biggest part about being the exception to a statistic is that your exceptionality proves the theory to be even more true. Because for every person that did it, right, every person that rose out of poverty, there's still 80% that's still there, right? So the mentality doesn't leave you just because your environment changed. Why? Because it's ingrained in you. I think there's a program that comes along with that. And I do think it takes most people a longer amount of time than they want to admit for them to come out of the poor mentality. Even though your environment changed, right? It can change in the matter of a year, a raise, a job interview. Like there's so many things in life that can pivot your current situation. But if you're bringing old brain into new scenarios, does it really matter? Right? It goes back to being kind of inconsequential to me, because all the things that you've accrued and all the things you amassed through your grind and hustle, what does it really mean if you still have a poor mentality? That scarcity is real, right? And so on one hand, people that grew up in a scarce mentality, they have a deeper appreciation of small things, right? So, for example, I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want to say next because this is important. All right, I'm going to keep it light. Growing up, one of my favorite struggle meals, and I call them struggle meals because at the time it's like you got to kind of make something shake. It sounds nasty as fuck, but it's good as hell, right? It's saltine crackers, saltine crackers, milk, and honey with a little sugar if you got some, right? That sounds so fucking gross as an adult. But what I found is that there are times where I have a craving for that struggle meal. And I can always afford more, right? Like I can go buy whatever cereal or oatmeal, whatever I want, right? But what I found is that even in those struggle meals, it provides a level of comfort for me in a weird way. Like I used to love sardines growing up, right? It's like on some struggle shit. And I'm not going to make this a whole poverty convo, but I'm just pointing to how even in light of the success and where I'm at now as a man, there are still things when I remember the quote unquote struggle of just trying to get by that still bring me comfort. Now, here's what it also does to someone like me. Because I know those things to be true, right? I don't ever forget it, but here's where it gets a little funny for me, right? I'm the type to where I came from reminds me of my resilience. Because I know where I've been and what I was able to endure, most things don't seem that tough. That's one way to look at it, right? I also know people that are from the same environment, because this ain't no unique story. Like, if you struggle for a little bit and, things were a little tough, no matter how poor and or bad it was, we all know what it's like to be resilient. Some people allow that mentality to grow a level of resentment within themselves, to where you start resenting those around you that had more or less, even to the point to where it might affect the way you rear your children. So if in your brain you grew up in a struggle and your only thought from it was this built character, you might even subconsciously take your kids through your struggle just because you want them to know what it's like. And so there's people that want others to share in their pain, and you got people that endure because of their pain. And all of this goes back to relationship, how you choose your relationships, and whether you're risk adverse to not wanting to be in one. That scarcity shit is real, right? It's bad when you have someone that had and then came down and have nothing and go back. But it's even worse if you've never had, because when you get, you don't know how to act. You don't know how long it's going to last. You don't know if you can maintain it. So that fear can fuck up long-term decision-making, like investing or marriage. Your environment has taught you that, hey, shit, the worst can happen and probably did, and nothing might not be forever. So before you get back there, it puts your brain in fight or flight when it doesn't need to be. A lot of times people that come from these environments, they'll do a few things. They'll always downplay their successes when they do happen. And it seems as if they're waiting for what they experienced to happen again. This goes to mentality, right? So if you're in a situation where you come from the trenches and shit was good, that it was bad, and it was good, it was bad, all of this plays into whether you can commit to someone long term. I believe it does anyway, right? I think that to be true. So it doesn't surprise me that when we're trying to talk about the Black community with our survival rates and how your instincts in high risk environments play into how you look at relationships. It's always fight or flight. You're always looking for the exit. You're looking for the out. You don't want it to be the worst, but you can endure it. And that can make you callous to shit that you probably shouldn't be. So that's my short answer for that one, right? Now, next, I want to pivot into the incarceration versus the college convo. That was important because I was talking about people at the age of 25. So the first question is, what does it say about our systems when a Black man at 25 is nearly as likely to have a prison record as he is to go to college? Those stats were so close, I think it's only a couple of percentage differences from the two. Now, this is what it tells me. First off, let's start with dispelling some shit. There's a small percentage of Black people, period, that end up in prison. We're talking about the whole masses of the Black community. The amount of people that actually touch prison and do real time is significantly smaller than we like to think, based on what we watch, what we believe the media to be. It's a smaller percentage than what it is. I don't want to misquote the number right now, right? But I do know it's a very small percentage. What bothers me is when you put that up against the number of people that went to college, that would also mean that those that went to college is just as small. So I can't say in one breath there's a small percentage of people that went to prison. And if you're saying that that number is almost equivalent to those that have a college degree, then yeah, 1 + 1 is 2. Small percentage that goes to college, small percentage that graduate or even go to that have been incarcerated. That within itself is the problem. The fact that we've been here this long and those two numbers are still comparable is part of the issue. Now, that could be put on a couple of different things. I'm not even here to speculate why. I just thought it was alarming that those two numbers are that close. That's crazy to me, respectfully. Like, I think that's a little crazy. I can go into why, but I think it's all building upon itself. We were just talking about the environment and the violence in the environment and how it can affect decision making. It also tracks well that from that mentality, that deficit mentality of your environment, how it can pour over into the decisions you make later. So just like in the first example, with a little black boy, a little black girl comes out of poverty and they go to college or go to the military, it's also just as likely that those same people will end up in the prison pipeline. That's just as much of reality, right? And even when we're talking about the poverty within itself, like even that is a smaller percentage. So I don't want to sensationalize these numbers, but I do want to jam them up against the positive. I want to jam the positive and the negative up so we can kind of see how these things coexist when we're out here talking about dating people, when we're talking about getting these families together. It's important to know who is on the other side of these stats. How are they affected and how can we get over this shit? But all these things are kind of juxtaposed this way for a reason. So I think that was pretty interesting. I think that the incarceration rate by 25 was like 1 in 8 for black men. And I think that it's 1 in 8. It's kind of similar when we're talking about the college degrees. So again, I do think that it says that our system is broken. Now, one can argue that most black men at this age will probably fall somewhere in between these two extreme points. But it does bother me that there isn't more of us that are either seeking higher education or have found a way to navigate through, right? If we're saying poverty, there's a small percentage of us that is in poverty when we're talking about the masses of black people in the United States, then it doesn't make sense that the number of college degrees should be anywhere close to those that are in prison. Something's strategically wrong here. There's something systematically not clicking the way it should. I do think a lot of this starts in the mind. So I'm going to lean on that for now. But we're going to keep digging through these layers to kind of see how this thing comes together. So in the same vein as incarceration in college, the next question I had when I was going through like creating this is, if incarceration touches 1 in 8 black men by 25, how does that shape the way we view dating, marriage, family formation? Think about what we're saying here. Anytime a person that's in deficit sees any light, if you're then disappointed or swiped off the chessboard of life with prison, right? Unfair situations, this all leads to that uncertainty of the brain. Doubt and fear are the biggest goal killers. Now, this is self-doubt, self-fear. Now, couple that with the environment in which you're in, also confirming your doubt and your fear in yourself. Why would I expect these people to understand or have the courage to propose or to hold down a family? And see, this is where I have to be balancing the convo and say that even in the environments in which these people are in, what we have to also be fair about is, although they seem to be afraid of marriage and long-term commitments, it doesn't stop them from temporary satisfaction. And that's where my problem lies. If we're going to be this gung-ho about being marriage shy, we should be just as gung-ho on not producing these kids. Now, on this show, and y'all going to notice, like, if y'all haven't already, I'm realistic about everything I say. Notice I'm not going to be the guy that tells everybody listening to stop having sex. Would I like you all to? Yes. Is that realistic? No. So what's the real thing to say? The real thing to say is you mitigate what you already know to be wrong the best way you can. So if you are from a broken mentality based on a system that was created for you to be this way, and you understand that to be true, and you're not in position to elevate, the last thing you should do is drag a kid into any of this. That's just stone cold truth. It's bad enough you're still processing, right? That's bad enough as is. Why bring someone else into it? If you know you have these trust issues, if you know you have these commitment issues, why are you creating another life that will be here probably past you? See, this is where the thoughts start to collide in my brain. when I'm thinking about this thing like in totality. And I think that would be my biggest message. If we're talking about people that struggle with reconciling how they were raised with who they're becoming, I don't think that that mentality will breed for you to be a healthy parent. I just don't believe it to be true. Now, can you be the exception to the rule? For sure. But commitment issues is not something that a child would pick in their parent. And that's just the truth. Right? And this is a cold truth that may apply. I'm not here to step on toes, but I don't give a shit because the truth doesn't change based on how I feel or how you feel. Listen to this. This is just the truth. We have to mitigate these risks until we heal. Both things are important, but they have to happen simultaneously. We have to correct behavior while getting better. We have to do both. And that's just where we are based on circumstances we've been dealt, how we've been raised. So anything else is just inexcusable, right? But we got to be honest about that part too. So I get it. 1 in 8 Black men by the age of 25 has been incarcerated. That definitely shapes the way we view dating, marriage, and relationships and how they form families. I'm not saying it doesn't. What I am saying is that for the other 7 individuals out of the 8, the number still has to be higher. Because what it doesn't reflect is that the 7/8 of the people that didn't go to prison, they're also not getting married at 25. Why is that? This is why, even though these stats are being juxtaposed for this show, even those that appear to be doing better than those on the negative side of these stats, they're still not doing it. Now, that is the alarming part of this. I can understand, like you said, if you from that environment where you got a scarcity mentality, violence is real, so your commitment issues are low. But what the fuck is the excuse for people that didn't suffer through any of this shit? I don't have an answer to that question, right? It's just something I'm thinking out loud when I'm, going through this topic with y'all. I mean, I get the disconnect because I'm not stupid to the world, right? I understand that all of us out of pocket. Let's start there. Men and women, we are out of fucking pocket. We are out of bounds. Masculinity now has a price. It has an expiration date for how old you can be. Femininity has been perverted. Women have leveraged the power of their feminine voice to try to do men shit in a way that is overcorrecting for things that were a problem to white women. I think that's another truth that we could talk about. But we are fucked up as a people. And this ain't coming from the worst of us because not everybody is from the hood. That's another thing I'm learning. These environments I talk about and some of the experience I had in my life, the more I am around the earth, around other people of color, I start to see that that's not the norm, right? Where I'm from statistically is not normal for what myself and my peers and the people I love, how we were able to come up. That's not normal shit. And I think the more that I process and be around other people, the more I'm starting to see that be true. But it does give me cause for pause because it seems as though those that didn't grow up like me still struggle with the same commitment issues as someone from my archetype of environment. That I don't understand yet. I think there could be other things in your life that could affect the way you do this, but I also think that there's a fucking gap between how we are statistically doing better in categories, and it seems like we always fall short right at this marriage and this family thing. We can make more money, right? We can do our fitness better, right? So we can eat better, do self-care better, but we still can't quite get over the hump of creating a family that stays together. And as a divorced man, I contributed to that too, right? Again, I did have my daughter. I had my daughter while I was married, and that's my only child, right? So that's cool. But nigga, I lose points because I got divorced. That's another hard truth, right? So even me, I'm reconciling, the things from my past and how I'm contributing to shit not being what it should be. So I ain't innocent in it, but I'm just honest enough to talk about it. I think that's really the difference. And I think that if I had to give a reason, outside of the accountability I take for myself, I think a lot of that is we are so disjointed from the way things should be right and exact and proper that we're just out here we're literally going through the motions of what we think right to be. But we have no fucking blueprint on how to actually do it, which is why we keep fucking it up. So the right thing to do is, yeah, you graduate high school, go to college. The right thing to do is, okay, after college, get married. The right thing to do is have a baby. But how the fuck do you do any of that if you've never seen any of it done? What are you basing this off of? Who's your leaning support when it gets difficult? Who has the context you're missing? And I think that is a good and a bad of the internet, is that the context is there if you're in the right place. But most of us, we're consuming things that are feeding our bias because that's the way the algorithm works. If you want to do an honest assessment of yourself, right, you should allow someone else to scroll through your YouTube videos on your Explore page. Allow someone else to take a look at what pops up on your TikTok. Because believe it or not, it's only feeding you what you gave it. Your input determines the output. And so I'm almost convinced that at the context that is missing, we're filling the context in with our own biasness, which ain't helping our outcomes. If you're a woman and you think niggas ain't shit, and every 5 videos you watch on TikTok is telling you how niggas ain't shit, none of that's going to help you build a family. If you're a man and you think all women are hoes, and this is what you say out your mouth, and this is what you type into your phone and your text message groups, this is what the content you are consuming, then yes, the algorithm will show you how women are hoes. And see, that's the uncomfortable, quiet truth that none of us can run from. As much as the reality is the reality, and the age of the internet and our phones and social media, your reality is warped by your preferences, your biasness that feeds the reality you see. That's where it gets cold, because now you got to really start doing the self-work, and that's what motherfuckers fall short. And although these stats are real and they're super important to put them against each other, this is the part that gets hard, because although these stats exist, it's still not an excuse to not do better. Ain't no excuse for that. You just got to do better. In spite of. It can't be the reason why. It can't be the because. It has to be in spite of. And this is what I need you all to take away from this show this time, is that these stats are not here to give you another excuse to spew out in the convo. That's not what we're doing this for. This is to give you the context to understand why it's happening. We're going to get into how you can actually get better than all of this, right? So next, I want to get into childhood household structure. This is a sensitive topic on the internet. This is talking about single-parent households versus two-parent household. And the question I got, kind of following the same logic train, is, are we asking individuals to fix relationship patterns that were structurally broken before they were born? Are we asking people that didn't come from two-parent households to know how to run one? What's good, Block? Think about that. I can go anywhere in the world and I will hear at least once or twice in a convo 6 or 7% of men that are in prison were raised by single mothers. Could be true, right? Maybe the number's off. But the point is, whenever we're having this convo about relationships, everyone's quick to point out how a lot of these kids are being raised by single women, right? Ain't no man around. And I do think that is a legitimate problem. Let's start there. That is definitely a problem. But we don't think about how we then expecting that generation of kid to turn around and do what his mom and daddy couldn't do. Ever thought about that part? Or that the people that'll be like, yo, there's a lot of single baby mamas and baby dads out here. You be saying that and you a product of that. And that doesn't mean that the stat ain't true, because two things can be true at once. But think about what we're asking when we're saying these stats. Like, think about what is being said. If we have a higher shift of children that are born to single parents, where they're raised by one parent versus the other, and then you have the nuclear family that's lower, how are we then expecting that kid from those environments to turn around and do it right? That don't even make no fucking sense, bro. Or we're making it that much more difficult from all the things we just talked about. You see how this is building? The layers build on each other. We started with women saying, shit, they got a higher chance of getting shot than getting married. When we talk about the violence you see, you growing up in violent, impoverished areas, shit going fucked up, your brain is already like, nigga, I don't even know if I'm gonna be alive, let alone get married. Fuck all that. Then when you put that on top of, we go out here, we make mistakes, we make babies, we ain't married, we don't stay. We're asking them kids to turn around and do what we couldn't do. Or we're asking you to do what your mom and daddy couldn't do. That's some cold shit. Am I surprised that it's fucked up? No. Because it actually tracks for me. But you see how you got to put it all together and have the full convo versus just a talking point convo or the gotcha moment convo, right? Because it's so easy to say that these things, aha, this is why, yeah, that's cool when you want to step on your baby mama neck, when you want to talk shit to your baby daddy, well, you ain't here, nigga, But it's crazy when you think about them kids having to then be adults like you all are and do it different than you. Because now you're asking your kids, you put the burden on your kids to be something you couldn't be. That's cold. Where they gonna learn it from? You ain't do it. Now, here's where it get interesting. Can you correct it? Absolutely. And see, that's where I want to have the convo. The fuck ups are happening. I'm not perfect, so I wouldn't ask you all to be, but I am asking y'all to be honest. The mistake ain't the problem. It's the course correcting that doesn't happen that is the fucking issue. You can't be on baby number 6 as a woman and don't understand you have commitment issues. There are 6 other people looking at you and you don't have the template yet. Now, I get it. We can all parent against what we are, but we know here's the funny thing about kids. They listen and they watch at the same time. Now, when they're younger, how they feel about you in their heart can warp what their eyes see. But we all know kids get that age to where them two things got to reconcile. They start looking at mom and daddy crazy some point. That do as I say, not as I do, that shit don't fly when they get old enough to ask some questions. So I'm not saying that none of this shit is good or bad. This is just a thing we have to correct. If you are a dude out there and you got kids and you're not in their lives, correct that shit. Co-parent. I'm not saying you got to love the chick tomorrow and that's got to be your boo thing. No, I ain't saying none of that shit. I'm honest. We're not going to cap. If you and your baby mama couldn't work, I get it, my nigga. I ain't even here to push on that issue. I would like for niggas to figure it back out. But the what you could do, the best you can do is figure it out for your kids' sake. Have the honest conversation with them. Yo, we fucked this up. Me and your moms, we got this shit wrong. We glad you here. We fucked this up. But now you have to do better. Now, I'm the example of what not to do, but let me help you get some tools to get you better. If you know you were once young and you out here fucking and you had babies that you didn't want, wouldn't the wise thing be to proactively change the way your kids look to sex? Imagine if at 3 and 4, the children that you had by mistake or that you didn't want, The only thing they knew about sex was that's the reward of being married. That's what married people do that have kids. Imagine if every kid, every black kid growing up, you know what I'm saying? That was their mentality. That logically, it makes sense to want to get married, and that sex, feeling good, is a reward to having children because we want you to prosper. Imagine if you heard that growing up. Now, I'm not saying it would have stopped you from humping, but what the fuck it would have did is set a realistic expectation for what you're doing and why you're doing it. Again, I'm not here to ask for perfection from y'all. That'd be fucking stupid. To expect all my people to do about face and get it right is unrealistic. Now, what is realistic is, can we fix the shit that we have fucked up? That's reasonable. Can you be better today than you were yesterday? The shit that is in your control, can you control that? Can you change it? That's the point of jamming these stats up like this. The stats are the stats. And if you want to use them to be right in the convo, that is easy as fuck to do, depending on what side of this gender banging shit you on. There's a fucked up stat that's going to make a man look bad, and there's an even worse stat that's going to make a woman look like a hoe. They're there. What's behind the stats? What's behind the numbers? Do you care that much? I purposely didn't put those stats back up when I'm asking these questions because I didn't want people so fixated on the stat that they're missing the context behind it. They're bad. The fact that as a people, you have just a higher percentage of something going wrong with you than going right lets you know we fucked this up somewhere. And that's just the cold truth. They shouldn't be this close. There has to be a pivot. That starts with being honest, man. Now, this one, like this next one, I shifted, right? I shifted again. So we went from the violence that people face and how that could cause commitment issues. We talked about the school to prison pipeline and how we're kind of on, like, for those that are succeeding, there's just many of us that are getting caught in this prison system. Then we talked about this whole childhood structure. Imagine juxtaposing this wealth shit we be hearing, because I know y'all heard it. Y'all got social media like I do. Generational wealth. How many times you heard that shit? We got to build for the next generation of wealth. Does anybody know what the fuck that means enough to do it? How many life insurance policies do you have on yourself? How many do you have for the loved ones around you? How diversified is your investment portfolio? Do you have one? If you come to a point in your life where you have to retire from something outside of yourself, how long will your current income carry you into the future? Is your investment portfolio and your assets, have they accrued enough to where if you never worked again a day in your life, you could live and carry yourself to death? I don't know about y'all, but I plan on living to like 80, 85, right? I don't want to be that one of them dudes that's old as shit and pissing and shitting on himself. Like, I ain't trying to be that old. That's kind of crazy, right? But I think at 85, I can still walk myself to the bathroom. But even then, I'm not trying to be a burden on my daughter. Why? But this generational wealth thing we talking about, this is the part that we talk about, but no one is doing the practical things to ensure that you can actually live long enough to be wealthy, because this is a juxtaposition of those two things. So the question is, how do you plan for wealth, retirement, or home ownership when early death is statistically a real threat rather than a distant fear? What does that mean? Motherfuckers aren't living past 60, 65. What generational wealth are you really thinking about? We unhealthy as fuck. We don't go to doctors like we should, right? We don't know our health status. We have no fucking idea. But you mean to tell me these same people that are this destructive to our own bodies understand what it's like to plan to retirement? Shit, most people ain't even coming out of the workforce no more. Motherfuckers be 70, 75 still at the job. Now, I think that's a lot of factors that go to that, right? So you got people to where they're constantly working because they know the moment that they stop, they lose what they believe to be their purpose. And so you got people that stick around. And again, they might still need the money. So it could be a couple of different factors, right? But the fact that we're tying our purposes to jobs that will hire us the moment we die is kind of cold. And what's even colder is that we care more about posting about generational wealth, but not being alive to enjoy it or pass it to anybody. You ain't even alive long enough to accrue it. Ain't that a bitch? Everybody's been pushed the American dream of, I want the house and a picket fence. Nigga, you gonna be alive enough to enjoy that motherfucker? Where you see your grandkids run through the yard of this picket fence and house you want? Health is wealth. Right now, I got dentist appointments I need to get put together right now. Cause again, I know my what's cold is that my dental health within itself is directly tied to your heart. So I'm who I'm talking about. See, this is how this conversation is cold for a nigga like me. I can talk to y'all and I be on my own case just as much as I'm talking to y'all. I'm talking to you all and to myself. That's how this shit works for a nigga like me. Got diagnosed with all types of crazy diseases and shit. I'm about to visit the Sarcoid Center and get that completely squared away once we get a plan of execution. But this shit is real. But think about what we're telling people to do. You got people online that's telling y'all invest, get it together, start your portfolio. You ain't done it yet. You ain't even healthy enough to think that far in your brain. You see how cold this shit is? Sean, what's good, bro? Think about how one thing has to happen before you can even get to the other. But we're telling people to do all these things together without the context of where the fuck are you at in this race? You mean tell me a nigga that can't go get a yearly checkup is gambling on his health is going to be fiscally responsible? No, because what'll normally happen is you'll accrue all this money and then a large proportion of it now has to go towards your health. Premiums ain't getting cheaper. Not that I seen, right? I got top of the top insurance, so that ain't the issue, you know. But I think that, again, you got to be alive. Like, this is the part that we have to give ourselves grace for, but we have to put in context. Yes, you want to live a life of prosperity. You want to have extra funds. You need to have a way for you to enjoy it, but you also have to be in the right quality of life to enjoy the very things you work so fucking hard for. Because other than that, what's the point? And then let's say you stubborn, because see, I deal with everything over here, right? Let's say you so fucking stubborn where you're like, yo, fuck them doctors, that's not my bag. Well, nigga, did you at least leave a bag for those behind you? You knew you weren't going to stop smoking. You knew that your health was shit. You knew that blood pressure was out of control. You know your cholesterol was high. But did you take the time to take out a $30 a month policy so that your kids can have $300,000 if you die? Did you at least do that? Probably not. Were you withholding from that big salary job you got enough money to leverage some of your taxes on the back end? Were you smart enough to take $2, $10 at a time to build a portfolio, buying fractional shares until you could buy the whole thing? Are you getting with people that already got this shit figured out? One thing I have known is, you know, when I will work with old people and talk to them, nobody ever said, damn, I wish I could have made more money. It's always more time. The quality of the time, right? And that's super important too. But all these things have to be done in tandem. And this is where, as a community, we are fucked up because it's hard for us to walk and chew gum. Because everything is always taken on its face, isolated. So in one breath, we'll tell people, The black community is fucked up. Our health is fucked up. They're not treating us around the hospital, but we're telling these same unhealthy individuals to build generational wealth, and we still ain't connected those two things to be one. That's cold as fuck to me. That's cold. Because my brain ain't related. But it all speaks to investments. And I believe the first investment is in yourself. Mental, physical, right? But this is how those two things in my brain correlate. If you don't care enough about yourself to do better by yourself, what makes me think that that same individual is planning for a future that's comfortable? Because what I don't want to be is the old miserable guy that, you know, I got to get the sponge baths and shit done and diapers changed. Like, I'm not trying to be that type of old dude. I'm not going to be. I'm be the old guy that way, yeah, I did both, nigga. Like, got my health in order. You know, I look young, still look fresh, fly. People guess my age and shit. Bank account on swole, because again, we can't say in one breath when we're telling men, yo, your money gonna come later in life. Yo, what the fuck you gonna look like when they get here? For so long, I've heard, grind, young man, grind. Go up to 60 hours a week. Go up to 80 hours a week. For what? Is it smart advice to do? Yes. You should dig in as a man and go get it. I ain't telling a nigga not to chase his bag. I'm just saying that when it fucking comes, make sure you have enough health and energy to maintain it. Make sure that you're healthy enough to enjoy the bag you just worked 80 hours for. Because what the fuck does it mean when you dead? Your job ain't gonna care. Matter of fact, your position be posted before your body get cold. Before the coroner get you, your job will be hiring your replacement. That's the cold shit, right? But that's the truth. But if you're not correlating those two things together, we only think, again, when we're talking about statistics, most people only think about the stat in isolation to itself. We do ourselves a huge disservice by doing that. Because all these things are happening at one time, all of them. We're talking about health. We're talking about wealth. We're talking about our young black men at the age of 25 to where it's just men who got college degrees is going to fucking prison. Now, although it's a small percentage on both sides, the fact that the college part isn't as big and most of us aren't coming from environments, that's troubling to someone like me, because I'm listening to it all, not just listening to what I want to hear or listening to this shit in a bubble. You do yourself a disservice by doing that. Something else I did want to talk about, we're talking about this wealth, death, and wealth building. The next thing that I thought about is wealth building even a fair expectation when survival absorbs so much of the mental, emotional, and financial energy? Is it fair to even be talking wealth building to people that are still in survival mode? That question actually had me torn when I wrote it, because I was thinking about it from the scarcity mentality when I wrote the question. How can we expect somebody that goes without or has a poverty mentality? How can I expect that same person to know what it's like to go get it and build wealth? How the fuck does that make sense? I told y'all I still fiend for struggle meals. I make them shits just for nostalgia, right? But how the fuck do those two mentalities exist in people that ain't quite already made it from one? And see, that's where it gets funny. Like, I'm blessed in a lot of ways. A lot of the shit that I've been through, I'm not there anymore. And that shit is cool and it's cold. I'm thankful and all that shit. But I know that is not the reality for most people that started there, right? Most of them are still there. So what we talk wealth to them for? Should we? Yes, they need something to strive to, right? We got to start breaking mentality. That shit is real. But I think that where it gets funny for somebody like me, if you are in a scarcity mentality, the best thing you can do is find something to fucking shoot for. Because clearly what you did so far ain't worked. The system exists and it's cold and it's fucked up. I'll grant anybody that. You don't hear me arguing. I'm not the guy that's going to argue the other side of that. I'm not a pick yourself up from the bootstraps guy. That's not my style. I understand exactly what the fuck I'm dealing with. I understand my role in this system, as fucked up, good, bad, or indifferent as it is. I understand it's a privilege for me to be having this conversation with y'all, streaming on this high technology. So both things can be true. I'm very privileged to have this conversation with y'all. I'm thankful I live the way I live, but that doesn't make me blind to what the fuck I know this system to be. And both things are true. Now, the extreme thing for me to do is to say some wild, egregious shit right now and get clipped and go viral for saying some shit I don't believe. I ain't cut like that. You feel me? Like that ain't my style. So is it fair? I do think it is fair to have the expectation. Because what we can't do is rest in what we know to be wrong. That's where we fuck up. Right? There's a difference between being honest and overly sympathetic. Right? I'm still trying to find that balance when I'm thinking about helping people in my community, right? I have to be honest in assessing what it is and fair enough to make them want more for themselves. That shit is tough because you're asking them to believe in something they haven't seen for years of their lives. This ain't just we was down and out for a little bit. Now we good. So I know what you mean, bro. It's like, no, nigga, we are down and out still. And this is what's fucked up, right? It's easy for us to point to the worst of us and see the inequities because it shows a little easier when you can say, oh, that's a Section 8 house. There's bugs in that person's house. But then when we switch it over to the engineer that's just as broke as a person on Section 8, right? They're not married, right? They're still out here fucking. They might have a kid or two on the side. But it seems like for some reason, what I've noticed is people love drawing the lines that make them feel comfortable. And they love standing on the part of the line that makes them righteous in the judgment. It's always easy to point down. That's the easy thing to do. What the fuck is the difference? See, this is where the conversation get cold. In my opinion, and this is probably going to sound extreme to some people, the mentality of the person that grew up in the hood and works at McDonald's as a fry cook, because that's the only job he could get. Let's say bro had a record, shit went bad from him. And the nigga that grew up from the hood has a good job, but is terrible at money. I would say the scarcity got both of them fucked up. I wouldn't look and say that because his clothes look better, that he's any better off than the other, because this shit is a mentality thing. The only winner is the one that bring it. There has to be acknowledgement first of what the fuck you're going through and a strategic plan to get out of it. These stats gonna get us fucked up. And I ain't talking about no debates. What will fuck us up with these stats is if we're not finding helpful, practical ways to, when we jam these things up, two stats that probably shouldn't make sense, to tell the whole story. These conversations aren't had in isolation. It's more of a symphony. There's a concert of things. There's a myriad of things going on all at the same time. They all have to be considered. None of it is an excuse for us to do better. That's where the shit gets cold. And that brings me to this. Y'all know I always got an aha question, right? So this is my aha question even for myself. If negative outcomes are statistically more predictable than the positive ones, at what point do we start, or who do we blame? Do we blame the individual or the system? And the whole time I've been talking to y'all, that question has been in the back of my brain while I'm talking to y'all. How is it I can watch a show like Southland, hear Regina say something like, damn, as a black woman at 30, I've got just as many chances of getting shot as I do to get married. Who do you blame for some shit like that going wrong? Is it her fault? Is how she was raised? Because that show was shot in, the premise of the show was the detectives, most of them were from the LA area. So it was very crime written, and most of them had, the stories of where they came from the mud, from the trenches, and they became police and detectives and shit, right? And so who do you blame? Or who's more at fault? The system or the person? Both. My answer pisses most people off because I think that the honest answer is everything is working in concert to give you the outcome you want. So on top of you being in a shitty system, in a shitty environment, you also have to lack self-accountability. You start mixing them two things up, that's when you start putting all of the things we talked about earlier. Now it all starts to make sense. You were placed in a very impoverished environment or environment that gave you the scarcity mentality. You took that scarcity mentality into the world and you probably made some bad decisions. That bad decision might lead to a record or something, right? Even if you beat the odds and do the things that we say we want black people to do, you go to college, get a trade. Y'all hear these things. Y'all got the same YouTube I got. Get a trade, go to college, go to the military, make something better yourself, start a business, get a job. Like we heard these things, right? But think about what the fuck, who you are, and think about it. You carry you everywhere, all of you, not just the best parts of you. You carry your past, you carry the environments which you came from, and your mentality. All these things travel, and all of these things we're telling black people to do. You don't get to separate you from what it is you just accomplished. This is what makes or breaks people. They want to separate and divorce themselves from what they were to make the story sound sweeter than what it was. You're still kind of the same person. Because mentality travels. I've known well-to-do people that still have a broke mentality, and it shows in how they spend and what they spend on. And a lot of people be surprised that they're only able to save as much as they do because they're so afraid of losing anything. So those are the people that where they bust their ass, they pay all their bills, they max out their savings, but they don't invest money because they're afraid of the risk. On the surface, it looks good, right? It should be okay. But later on, you're going to lean on the system. And because your money didn't make no money, now you fucked up just like the person that was on Section 8. Y'all right back where you started from. Because you didn't fix the mentality. The mentality has to be the fix. This is why I said everything works in concert. Let's bring it full circle. Why do I think it's both? For the very reasons why we're juxtaposing these stats. That's why I say it's both. How you going to tell someone that was born in a system, I said it right. They were literally born into a system to a single parent household. You're placing the onus on a child that had no control over that, and now they have to write their own shit. Based on what principles? Most motherfuckers ain't following religion the way they say they are. In terms of knowing the tenements, knowing the principles. Shit, that's something I'm working on, and I'm grown as fuck. I ain't no better or worse than y'all. So if we're not doing it based on the Abrahamic law, we're not doing it based on any example we see, how the fuck are you doing it? You're doing it even in spite of yourself. Ain't that a bitch? The system already ain't gonna play fair with you. Complaining about it, marching about it. I think that there are steps we can do to make our voices heard. So let me not minimize that. I don't want to do that on the stream either, right? But we have to be honest about what we're up against. That's the truth. That's the stone cold truth of this. I'll be disingenuous to deny any of the nuances that I know exist in real life. That ain't cool. But who's to blame? If I had to put it on a scale, shit, I would say the person. If I'm answering based on how I think about things, I would say the person is more to blame. Only because I think that the way I'm wired, right, when people are bringing things to me and have a problem, my brain instantly goes to, are you controlling the controllables? And what you'll find with most people is when you start asking them shit like that, you'll see that they're not controlling their controllables yet. The reason why I tell people to control the controllables and what that means is anything that is in your power to fix, to change, to adjust. What normally happens is as you're doing that self-work, this could be financial, this could be health, this could be physical. When you're correcting yourself by yourself without needing to be told to, it gives you confidence to then change and shape and leverage the environment in which you're in. Excuses are convenient and they're everywhere. Does that by any means say that you should be bootstrapping it? Fuck no, because that ain't realistic either. Everybody needs some help, needs some knowledge, right? So I'm not sitting up here saying that, yo, pull yourself out of bootstrap. I'm not that guy. But I do believe in self-accountability for everybody. I totally stand behind that shit. Because even if I say it's a system fault, again, the system is a system and it's going to keep being a system no matter how I feel about it. That's where my brain goes. I'm aware of the system. Now, see, this is where a lot of people might fuck this up. Because I know how the system works, I navigate through said system better. Or if I choose to unplug from it, I know what that means for me too. So this is why I can say they work in concert. When we're talking about negative outcomes, I think that they work in concert. When we're talking about positive outcomes, they work in concert. Because what normally happens is when we're talking about the other side of this coin, we're talking about positive people that figured it out. Those people are also individually self-corrected, placing themselves in the right environment to get to success. But all of those things have to be there, because ain't nothing worse than seeing a positive person or a person that seems to have it together with self in a fucked up environment, because you're one decision away, you're one room away, you're one choice away from the things that made you a promising person, puts you on an obituary that could be out of your control. This is why I say that these two things have to work in concert, whether we're talking about success or failure. They both have to exist. Because if one of them missing, it's going to all go to hell. But again, like my takeaway from all of this, yo, like, again, this has been short show. I got a lot of shit going on. I'm actually getting under the weather. It's about to get cold as fuck outside. You know, this is one of them in and out shows. But my takeaway from all of this, man, I really want y'all to know, when we're throwing these stats around, we're having these convos, in your mind, start putting them together to tell a story. Do you like the story you're hearing? Walk it all the way down and marry the statistics to the people that you know in your life. Do that too. Because it's easy to say, these women is hoes. They don't know good men. Well, consider it all. Who is the person? Who's the environment? Who are you talking about specifically? It's easy for women to say, these niggas hate women. Who are you talking about? What group of men? Are you finding things to feed your biasness? Is most of the shit in your head? Probably. I think it all starts there anyway, right? It starts within you. Control the controllables first. Control the controllables first. Fix what is within your power to fix. Correct all things that can be corrected. If you got lungs in your breath and the Most High gives you another day, correct some shit you fucked up the day before, the month before, the year before. Who told you you're going to be here tomorrow? Who promised you that? Nothing? Okay. What you plan to do about it? This gift of time and life that we have is precious, but it's very short-lived. Right? Got enough stories life has showed me over and over that it's a privilege to be here. No matter the condition, no matter the environment, it's still a privilege for me to wake up and try it again tomorrow. It's a fucking privilege that you can't take for granted. No one promised you to be here. No one promised you tomorrow. There are things that were out of your control that have shaped the way you view this thing we call life. Work through those things, correct them. Be patient with yourself and allow yourself measurable goals. Don't talk to me about $1 million of saving if you can't keep $2 out of your paycheck. But also, don't let nobody laugh at you because you can only save $2 now. Mentality forms habits. Habits lead to results. It's okay to look around and be happy for what you built this far. It is not okay to stay there. If you had any adversity in your life and you've come past it, don't crutch off of it. No one cares about the last time you did good on a hard test when another test is coming. Celebrate it, move forward. But if every time I'm talking to you, the context as to why you ain't done something, there's some shit that happened in your past, then you might as well let the environment dictate what you're going to do next. We all got shit we working through. Nobody's perfect. Anybody that proclaims to be or to have the answers is a fucking lie. Because if the answers was that easy to get and to have, we wouldn't have as many kids that went to college, also go to prison by 25. Those numbers wouldn't be that close if we all had the answers. We all trying to figure this shit out. That's the cold truth. Right? But again, that's all I'm asking you all to take from this show. Again, that clip really sparked a different thought, because up until then, I haven't heard anyone juxtapose marriage with death. That at her age in the show, the context was a 30-year-old woman that was successful in her field. She had the epiphany: at my age, I'm just as likely to get shot as I am to get married. And that is a wild place to be in as people. So your positive outcome is just as likely as your negative. And that's that funny ass thing about time. It can play in your favor or it can play against you. So all my people that's out here wealth building, make sure you put your health, and you're doing that in concert with this paper, this portfolio you got. Do both. Walk and chew gum, my people. Stop isolating these stats for the sake of a convo. Tell the whole picture. No one likes anyone that cherry picks a story that don't understand the beginning, the middle, and the end. That's annoying. Tell the whole story. Or shut the fuck up. You ain't got to say nothing at all. You can also do that, right? Because the context matters. The stat is a stat for a reason. Does a stat need fixing? For sure. The fact that the negative and the positive outcomes are so closely aligned alarms me as a Black person. Yes, that is very alarming to me. These are my ways I think to get out of it. These things got to be done together in concert. Starts in the brain, starts with accountability, starts with measured actionable goals that can get you further than where you are. You can do it, right? Be aware of where you are. Take a more balanced approach when you're thinking about having these conversations, right? I'm not telling you to be balanced on everything, because certain things do require you to be extreme in how you execute. So but approach it from at least the balanced perspective first. What is it that's being said to me? What am I seeing in front of me? What does it mean in totality? What am I going to do about it? Because most of these things have a root cause. Find the root cause of your problems. There might be some truth in what you think, but it might also be off because you don't have all the context. Find your context for the problems you have in your fucking life. Find the context for the problems that you have in your life. Find the context for the problems you have in your life. Find the context. Ask yourself the why to get your outcome better. I am because we are. That's how that works, right? That's all I got for now, man. We got some surprises coming down the pipeline here at the SPS podcast, man. We got some new shows we cooking up for y'all. We're gonna try to hit this live button a little bit more. Me and the squad, man, we cooking up a lot of exciting things. Again, I look forward to the future. I appreciate y'all for having me for this long, entertaining me, hitting this like button, sharing this shit. Like, that shit means a lot. I've been talking to y'all since I was in the whip, so this is pretty cool to come this far and look around in the room. Still gotta hide some wires and shit, but y'all don't mind all that. Like, we still building, you know what I mean? But I appreciate y'all, man. All the support is necessary, is needed, and I appreciate it. Make sure you share to somebody that needs to see it. Again, my takeaway is ensure that you're telling the whole story when we having these conversations, because they're happening more around you, right? Have the whole convo. Understand the very thing and the point you want to stand on. Understand it in totality, not just in the part that makes you right. Understand what you're missing. Find the context. Add the context. Have the full convo. With that, I will see y'all next time. Take it easy. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share it, and I'll holler at y'all later. Peace.
Yeah. On behalf of SPS, thank you for joining us and be blessed. We hope you left with more if you came in with less. Turn on the notifications now so you can see what's next. Tune in next time, the panel and topics gonna be crazy. Can we all come to a conclusion if we try? Yeah, maybe. We the ones with angles that the others can't see. We the channel that you need to check out every week. It's the SP, that's part of SP, that's part of SP, that's part of. We like to thank you. SP, that's part of SP, that's part of SP, that's part of. Till the next time, we pray you be safe and tune in, like, share, and sub. Tell upon her gon' tune in and we out. Yeah.